publishing Persuasion. I am Angela Montoya, author of Sinner's Isle, and I am here with the little I I don't know what's on your earrings, but they look like little butts. The butt
Our
queen.
little butts.
They are little butts.
They're tits and bits. This is a little lemon with hairy legs and titties, and this is a buxom pear with a glorious bootay and hairy legs,
You
and
know,
I'm obsessed.
that is a bootay right there. That is a tush.
That's goals.
Oh my gosh, dang. People pay for those. That is a tush.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're here with the tits and bits queen herself. She's got the tits and the bits. Melanie Schubert. Melanie, how are you?
I am, in fact, glorious, my friend. We have just had on the show the Linda Camacho, and what an episode. I knew when I heard her on Manuscript Academy. It's like, I can't remember everything now. It's like well over a year ago that I found that podcast episode. I just remember sitting there and thinking, this person is so wise and so like full of good energy. I didn't have a podcast then, so I didn't even think about it. But I was just like, what a cool person, which is why I did Manuscript Academy with her. And then, yeah, when we started the podcast, and I was like, she'd be so cool to have on. But I was like too shy then to even think of asking agents. It took us a few months, say, before we thought of asking agents. And
Yes,
even then, it was a bit pie in the sky. Neither of us thought they'd say yes.
I
So,
know. Yeah. Well, it's intimidating.
yeah,
Because I mean, they could easily say no, which is fine.
yeah.
But so far none of the agents that we've asked have said no. They've all come on,
Mm,
and we've only asked the best agents,
I
the top
agree.
tier agents, and but they've really been some of my favorite episodes because it's really fun to get to know the agent behind, like the person behind the persona of agent. You
Mm,
know what I mean?
when,
And agents are always these like mysterious creatures that we see tweet random things or on social media, and we're like, wow.
yeah,
And we're still like, wow, after talking with Linda.
yeah,
She's just amazing. So I could see why after you had her critique your this last project,
yeah.
why you were so excited with her critiques and like suggestions. I could see why, just like talking to her, she is, like you said, she's wise, she knows her shit, and so I could see now why you were so damn excited.
Yeah, honestly, when I saw that she was on, I'd already been like when I was doing my agent hunts and making a list of who I wanted to query. And I was honestly shocked by the agents that are available and like shocked that she was on menu. I was like, this exists. Like you can talk to this agent and get feedback on your work. Like it blew my mind. And that's why I harp on about Manuscript Academy, because it really is a unique access into, and we didn't get to talk about that much with her, but yeah, I rave about it enough to make up for that we didn't get to ask her. But
Yeah.
seriously, like it never ceases to amaze me because realistically they are so busy agents, and that's probably part of why it feels so veiled and so abstract, like the agent behind the screen, because they're just busy. Like they're not like making reels necessarily and like constantly tweeting. They're just like trying to sell books. So
Yeah,
that
that's
might
a
be
good
part of
point.
why they feel so you know
Yeah, they've got shit to do.
yeah.
That makes sense, actually.
How have you been this week?
Good. So I last night, what is today? Yeah. Was it last night?
Tuesday for you,
Yesterday?
Wednesday
Yes,
for
Tuesday
me.
for me. So yesterday I was in my office and I was working on book two, but
Yeah.
then I got an email from Bria, my editor, and she sent me back my manuscript already with just like a few more things.
Yeah.
And so I'm jamming through that. She wants it back, on Friday.
Woo,
Um also, I know, which
that's
I could do.
close. You
Yeah.
can do it. You can. I love that. You can, and you can do it now. This is the
Yeah.
thing. You've been doing it long enough. You're like, I know what I have to do, and I know I can do it.
Yes. I think. No, I can do it.
You
I can do it. I
can
can
do
do it. I can do it. Well, but here's the other thing. So she asked also for the acknowledgments. And that rocked me because I was
it.
like just thinking of who and all the people, it's and not wanting to leave anybody out on accident. You and I were talking about this last night.
Yeah.
Just wanting to make sure I just express my gratitude to everybody. And it's
Mhm.
probably impossible because it really could end up just being like an entire book, right? Of just thank you to everybody. But there's really so many people that have played a
Mhm.
huge role in my journey and in this book. And so I I started writing the acknowledgments last night and I just bawled like a little baby bitch. I bawled my
Like a baby. I love that. Like a little baby bitch. I've never heard that. I'm taking that one.
I love that for you. No, I bawled like a little baby bitch because you just start thinking of just wow, and also kind of just thinking, wow, I did this. I
Yeah.
got here. So that's where I'm at is just um trying to make sure anybody that has like beta read or critiqued, like I want to at least like put their name in there.
Mm.
And so that's kind of where I was like, oh shit. And luckily I had started making a list of
That's
people that I
smart.
had.
Yeah.
um but so I suggest to anybody that is like even querying or getting ready to sell their book, like start writing down people who've really played a big part in your book. And so that was me. So now today's Tuesday. After we're done here, I'm gonna jet over to the office and start crack-a-lacking. But yeah, so life is good. It's about to get busy this week. And how
Yeah.
about you, Mel?
I just had an idea before I forget, like a
Oh,
hack for you, maybe. Maybe type in, it will be a little bit of work, but if you type in Sinner's Isle into your email history, it will come up with all the, you'll have to go through it because it'll probably be other emails that aren't related, but you should be able to find all the people you sent it to. And
oh
that would
yeah,
at least ease your mind that you didn't miss anyone who actually read for you.
very good. I like that. I will do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm
Yeah.
so excited. You made me a little bit emotional then just thinking of, and it's so you to like cry thinking about thanking people who like, but I understand. I mean that in the nicest way. Like your heart was just, that's the moment that it's starting to feel real. And you're just like, these people were part of my journey.
Yeah.
It,
Yes.
yeah.
No, it's true. Like I'm getting a little teary-eyed right now thinking about
Yeah.
it again because it means a lot for someone to take the time to read
Yeah.
your stuff. And even if it's like I can't, read a lot, but I can read like the first few pages or just
Yeah.
any of it, and to be like kind enough to want to help you make it better.
Yeah.
It's an honor, to be honest with you. And then I started thinking, wow, a lot of these people read Sinner's Isle when it was rough.
When she were raggedy. She were raggedy at some point.
She was a raggedy bitch. And so I started also just kind of laughing, like, holy shit, should I even email them? Like, should I even remind them they read this?
They would be honored. And that's the thing. From the other side, think about how, like, even just listening to Linda say how when she sees those books on the shelf and she's like, feels like in a way that it's hers, like a part of her, all those people who were part of the journey, they'll be so honored to even be considered, you know?
Yeah. Maybe I should do like all to all the people who said no. Just kidding.
Yeah, fuck you, bitches. Look at me now.
Look at me now, motherfucker.
They see me rolling, heading. I don't know why I ever sing on this podcast. It shouldn't happen.
No, I think it's good. I like the singing. So Melanie, you saw a reel of mine and thought I was talking about revisions for a new book, a draft race idea, and you came in saying, hey, I've got a new book you want to start writing again. So you have a new idea.
I could cry. Yesterday, my brain nearly exploded. I don't even know. I started that middle grade book.
Yeah.
The day before, and I fucking mapped that shit out. And I was like, this is legit. This is like the best middle grade I've come up with since like ever. And I was so excited about it. And then I just let it sit. I had done it. I didn't do a full beat sheet because middle grade's smaller. I didn't feel the need to at that point. I had the main ideas just scribbled down. And then I just let it sit for a second. I like started writing. I always write down kind of like a few paragraphs of chapter 1. I'm like, she's got a voice,
Mm-hmm.
And yesterday, so the day after, I was just like strolling back from getting my coffee. And it was the first coffee I'd had in ages because I did that cleanse, no sugar, no alcohol, no coffee, as the first coffee. So maybe it was the glorious first coffee in 3 weeks. That shit was hard. I don't know if I'll avoid all those. Coffee's staying with me. I've had it today. I feel very happy, but it was good. I'm glad I did the cleanse. But yeah, first coffee in a while. I was just walking past and I passed this Halloween house and I was like, I'd love to write something more Halloween. I was like, oh, my stuff's kind of leaning towards that way anyway, with like ghosts and goblins and I'm not kidding you. Like Liz Gilbert talks about the big magic. A title just came into my head. And as soon as it came into my head, I could not walk home fast enough. Like I was so overwhelmed. I felt like teary. And I ran upstairs and I was like typing out the title, typing out like the first few paragraphs. And then I was like, I wound up bumping into a friend and doing this big long walk. But when I got back, her dog killed that bird. I had to go help her because she was screaming her head off. So when I say I went for a walk, I went to help my friend who was like almost in tears about her dog killing this bird. But when I came back, I was still just like to the point of feeling anxious. I was pinging so much. And I was like, maybe I should meditate. I was like, no, this book is coming to you now. It's the big magic. You have to write the ideas down now. And I wrote down the full beat sheet yesterday in one afternoon. And it just like poured like this. It just felt like poured out of me, the whole idea. And every time I don't usually push through when I'm feeling anxious. Usually, what I mean is I'd usually take a break and be like, okay, let's meditate and take a walk. I was like, nah, today is not the day. Like today you push through and get this out. And I am so fucking excited for this book. Like, I can't wait to show you the synopsis. Like, well, the beat sheet, which is basically my synopsis. I'm so excited. And I've been wanting to go back to YA as well. So I'm going to draft this bad boy out as fast as I can, to be honest.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like, it was one of those, just like Liz Gilbert says, how she says the idea comes to you and you have to grab it when it comes to you. And I was like, I'm fucking grabbing on right now. So it was really surreal. And I think it made me emotional because like we all have imposter syndrome and this is a really long process. But when this happened to me, I was like, no, bitch, this is what you're meant to be doing. Just keep doing it. Like this idea excites me so much. And like sometimes you finish a book and you're like, I'm never going to write anything that good again. But it's not like that. The more you feed it, the more it grows. And creating that space for that has just, the ideas that just keep coming. And yeah, it kind of blew me away, honestly. Like, I feel like humbled that I had that kind of experience where it just like,
damn.
yeah.
Damn, that is amazing. Like, I feel like squealing.
Next year, I'm coming in hot. Watch out, Query Trenches. Like, I am gonna come in there with Beyond Love. I'm gonna come in with my YA, my middle grade, my picture books.
She's about to be busy. She's gonna be busy selling books. Oh, yay. I love it. I love the fire. I love it. I feel it from here. I'm excited for you. I have good feelings about all of your stuff. It's happening. Magic is in the air.
Magic is in the air.
Well, should we introduce Linda?
Yes. You were so patient with me while I took you on this magical journey of my
Oh, I'm excited about it though. I'm happy. I just know, like, each book of yours I feel is getting more and more like magical, more and more you, I feel. And like, so I just get more excited each book because it's like, she's feeling it. Like, whatever that magic is like,
yeah.
you know.
I love you. Thank you.
You're just the bee's knees, the tits and bits.
You're the bee's knees. No, Linda is just a gloriously wise, and like you said, there's like a power to the way she speaks. Like, and I just feel like she has such a deep insight to, like, everything she said had like depth to it, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I can't wait for our listeners to hear this episode. And yeah, let's read her bio. So Linda was always a fan of escaping into a good book. So the fact she gets to make it her career is still surreal. She graduated from Cornell and has held various positions at Penguin Random House, Dorchester, Simon & Schuster, and Writers House Literary Agency. She's done everything from foreign rights to editorial to marketing to operations, which gave her a bird's eye view of how all the departments work together to bring books to life. Somewhere in between all that and little sleep, Linda received her MFA in creative writing from the Vermont College of Fine Arts. She counts herself lucky to work with amazing colleagues and clients who inspire her in both the children's and adult categories.
I love it. Listeners, you are in for a treat.
Yeah, here she is.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Hi.
Welcome, Linda. Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on here.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
Oh, of course. Yeah, no, we've been excited to have you on.
Oh.
I know Melanie's a big fan of yours. I believe she listened to you on, is it Manuscript Academy, right?
Yeah, that's where I first
Oh.
heard you speak, and I was like, this is a wise soul. And actually, I thought when we started the podcast like a year ago, and I'd done Manuscript Academy then with you, I was like, I need to get her on the show.
Oh.
But I was way too shy to ask then. But this year I was like, we had Amparo on the other day, and I remembered how awesome you were. I was like, let's just ask. Let's see what happens.
Oh. Yeah, no, I'm so glad you did. Oh my gosh. And I don't know how you're doing it. Podcasts look so, they're just so hard to do. I love listening to them, but it just seems like it's a whole to do. So I always admire people who go ahead and do it.
Yeah, I feel very blessed. Melanie takes care of all of the technical side. And so I'm always like bowing down because I wouldn't be able to do it on my own today.
Listen, I'm not going to pretend it was pretty at the start. There was a lot of like sweaty, anxious stress, but we got there.
Yeah.
Angela was patient, our guests were patient, and here we are. So welcome to the show. Do you want to tell our listeners a little bit about you? Like, where did it all start for you, agenting life?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I'm going to keep it short because my story is like all over the place. But I started in 2005. I started working on the adult side actually at Penguin and doing very back end stuff. I worked in reprints, which is basically any book that's been out for about a year. So it was very frenetic. It was my first job out of college. So I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. I was kind of going, oh, this is good, but is this it? And then I left after a year. And I thought I was going to do law school, and I applied, and I spent a lot of money on one of those LSAT prep courses. I did not go to law school, I will say. But when I was doing my side jobs while I was, thankfully my parents, I lived with them, thank goodness, because, I was very broke. Even with publishing, some of the publishing money that I had was very little money. But when I would do side gigs, there were no books like when I was working at Penguin, there were books everywhere. And they had something called take shelves that you could just go and take books home. And that novelty never wore off. Even years later, when I wound up working at Random House, there are all these books and you can just take them home. It's wonderful. So since I realized that wasn't everybody's workstation, that you would just have free books everywhere, I was like, I think I miss publishing. And it actually was kind of hard to get back into it because then the recession hit and it was just bad timing. So I actually had to work kind of backwards, where I started with a job 2005, and then eventually I did internships in any place they would take me. And I kind of accidentally did every department. So it was just an accident, and I still wanted to get that hands-on work with talent. And initially I wanted to be an editor, but eventually I just was like, please, somebody hire me. So eventually I moved into children's to try that out, because I was like, oh, I like children's books. This could be fun. So then I actually wound up, after working at even places like Simon & Schuster and Writer's House and a place called Dorchester Publishing, and no longer exists. And then Random House did an internship there. And then they eventually took pity and hired me at Random House. And I worked in children's marketing for 5 years. And then I took advantage of the tuition reimbursement, and I was able to get my MFA in children's writing from the Vermont College of Fine Arts. But I was still, and I enjoyed that. I learned a lot, but I still wanted to get close to what I wanted to be doing, which is working with writers in a more direct way. And so then I just bugged as many people as possible to give me a chance. And then I moved into agenting. So eventually people were like, okay, you can work with us. So that's kind of how it happened. And then I've been publishing about 18 years now, doing different things, but agenting about 8 so far. So it's been kind of quite a ride.
That's amazing. Were you always like obsessed with books growing up? I mean, was it always the goal is to be around books?
I always definitely loved books, but I didn't know that it was a career. And I think there are a lot of people like that, where even today, I mean, I grew up in the Bronx and I went to Catholic school, and, we had books and things, but no one ever talked about that as a career ever. And I'd never met an author like that. Now that I hear that kids get author visits, like, that's a thing. So no, it was when I was in college that I wound up being friends with this girl who was in my, my year. I was a freshman, and her mom just coincidentally happened to be one of my favorite romance authors at the time, Andrea Kane. I'm like, wait, you're like, that's your mom? So that's kind of what she was like, yeah, and then you should look at these places and what you like books. So it was really people that kind of steered me in that direction. But for the longest time, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I wanted to be something more practical, something that would just guarantee money, whatever that meant, like law, or I don't know. I when I was a kid, I was like, I could do business law because that's like double money. I didn't really know what that was, but nah, not for me. Yeah.
I find it kind of interesting. I've noticed, listening to interviews with agents and just some of our friends who are actually lawyers. I find it this interesting correlation, and I don't know if it's you're just smart and snappy and on the go, but it always feels like I've heard many agents saying, oh, I was thinking about becoming a lawyer, and I've heard our friends who are lawyers be like, you know what, maybe I'm going to become an agent. And I just love this little correlation, and it feels right. It feels right.
Yeah, because you do I could understand why. I mean, it's like kind of a lot of writers who take what they consider to be a safer, more secure route, and there are a lot of lawyers. It's like you take that skill and you go, oh yeah, but let's do something practical, whatever that means. So yeah, and there are plenty of attorneys who make some amazing lawyers, assuming they don't come from corporate side where they are used to money, because in the beginning, that's definitely not what you make. No, way easier to make money other ways.
It's really relatable, kind of being not even thinking of it as a career, something in writing, just kind of and I feel like these people who maybe shut that down early on, if it was a little bud of something, they mean well, they don't want you to suffer financially, but like I said last episode, I think it's more crushing and like soul crushing if you don't chase those things that put you like in that way. And it's a slow, painful death. Personally, that's what I experienced in like all the other careers I tried. So yeah, very relatable. Can you tell us a little bit about what kind of genres you represent?
Sure. I feel like I like to say that I'm genre agnostic. I kind of like a little bit of everything. And it's not super helpful when someone asks me, you know, I mean, even when I'm talking to editors and they say a similar thing, I'm like, I know, like, what do we like? Something that's interesting and unique. But I do a little bit of everything in the sense of the stuff that I've sold or like picture books, middle grade YA across all the different genres. Though my sweet spot tends to be fiction. I feel like I've done some picture book nonfiction, but that's as much as I've stretched into that. And then I do some adult fiction as well. So that tends to be, again, I'm pretty open there as I'm growing into that space, but I love a good romance, whether it's really super steamy or something that's very light, though I've been really in the steamy phase these days, but I love a good rom-com and that's a bit sweeter. So that depends. I also love horror, you know, something really creepy. So that those are kind of two sides of that same coin. And yeah, it's just something, man, a little bit of everything. And I think the only thing that I notice is that I just really want to be surprised.
That makes a lot of sense. I can only imagine how much manuscripts or, you know, queries and pages you see. What is something that makes a manuscript stand out to you? Is there something you can pinpoint?
Yeah, that's tough. I would say, and someone else said this, I don't know who, but I thought that was smart, that it's something in the writing that makes it sing to them, right? It's something very, very voice driven. Yes. I would say voice is probably the primary thing, because I think everything else is more fixable, right? You can sort of fix the plot, you can fix, you know, the premise, you can fix a lot of things, but voice is, you can't really fix voice, right? And if something doesn't really hit you in that gut, it's not likely to later. But it doesn't mean that the things that I pass on, oh, it was a crappy voice or it was a crappy story. There have been people who've queried me with different projects. You know, one project maybe didn't hit, that might have been just not the right thing. And then they'll query me with something else and I go, yes, that's it. And it just kind of matches their voice. It just works. And especially as writers are finding their voice and the story that they kind of want to write, that it works that way too. But I would say maybe voice, that would be kind of a thing that's really key for me.
Yeah.
That magic thing, voice.
Yeah.
Right.
It wasn't in the questions, but it suddenly pops into my head. Do you find that you're a mood reader as well? Like, could one day something like, I don't know, you got vampires or something and you were just like, no, I don't want vampires today. And then maybe a year later, you're like, vampires take me now, you know, like.
Yeah. That happens a lot. That's why I always tell people it's very subjective. Even when I put something out in submission, I always kind of joke that it's, yes, I know the market as best I can, and a lot of it's still guesswork, but it feels like you have to light the right candles and turn the doorknob just the right amount of times and the moon is shining. Like it feels like everything has to align. And even when I'm reading submissions, which I'm woefully behind, I'm still playing catch up, but I try not to go in a bad mood. That's a start. So if I find that I'm going in, I'm just like, oh, I just want to just clear out my inbox, that's not the right frame of mind to go in. So I'll go, no, let me wait until I dive in an excited state. But yeah, some days I'm just like, I want a Western. Like I was watching recently that movie Lost City. I'm like, oh man, like I would love something like that. Something in book form. And I'm seeing more of that come more into the market. So I'm very excited to see where that goes to. But yeah, it really is mood driven.
That makes complete sense. And I love that, what you were saying of just not going into it in a bad mood. Because, you know, it makes sense because it would just be, it's so much easier to say no when you're not feeling it in general.
Those are things. Yeah, those are the things that come the fastest anyway. Those are the no's. And more often than not, like, you know, and again, it's subjective, right? Because even there's stuff that I go, even if I thought it was quote unquote bad, they've gone on to sell and do really well. Like, and I love when that happens, because it just shows me, look, you just never know. And I turn down a lot of things that I really do like. That's another thing too. Sometimes I have something that might be a little similar on my list that feels too close, or I'll just go, man, I don't know if I'm as excited as I'd like to be about it, but I can see this totally selling. So yeah, it really all depends.
Yeah, I guess it's the same on the reader side. Like, there's been so many times when there was so much hype around a book, and I was like, everybody I know loved this book. I am just getting ready for like a cozy, fabulous read. And then I read it and I'm just like, did I read the same book? Like, and vice versa, people trashing books, and I'm just like, but I love it.
Yeah, all the time. Absolutely. Yep.
So what does it take to get an offer of representation from you? Because, you read so much, and I'm sure there's things that are, like you said, come in similar to you in your inbox. So what does it take after you've read the manuscript where it's like, okay, this is it, this person I want to represent? What is that like? And what is that process like also, like when you do decide with the call, the special call?
That's when the power, because people think of the agents or even the editors, they have all the power. What's kind of beautiful and terrible, but beautiful about the industry, though, I love, is that the power dynamic is always shifting, right? So it's like, okay, initially you kind of feel like you have to jump through hoops for the agent or the editor, but when you get their attention, that power dynamic has already shifted. So when I fall in love with a story, I'm like, oh my gosh, I really love this. And I do get, it almost feels like I'm like a first date sort of thing, right? Because initially it starts with the story, and then I sort of cyber stalk, and I'm like, oh my gosh, who are they? I want to get to know them. And then, when you have the call, I personally, and every agent is different, but personally for me, I don't offer immediately, even if I'm like, I want to, because it really has to feel like the right fit, right? I'm not for everyone. Everyone is not for me, even if they have an amazing personality and an amazing book. It really has to feel like it just works. So we'll have a conversation about the things I loved about the story, the things that, I'll ask, oh, what inspired it? Maybe this is what I think that could use work. What do you think? So it really is that back and forth to see how do they work? And it doesn't mean they have to agree with everything, but if everything that I'm saying, where it could be something like, I'm completely shifting what your story is, I might not be the right person, right? I didn't get your vision, because my goal is to not impose my vision, but to bring my client's vision to life in the best way I can try possible. So if I feel like, okay, they're receptive, we could potentially work together. And beyond that, what are their goals, right? They can have pie in the sky. They could say, I want to be like #1 bestseller, and all that's great. But it's like, okay, what are your 5-year, what's your goal for 5 years, 10 years? What do you want out of this kind of creative working relationship, even for yourself? And you get a gauge. You really do get a gauge. And then if I offer, and by then it usually does yield an offer. There are very few times that it has felt like it wasn't maybe the best fit, but then I'm always nervous. And then, then I'll go, okay, then I'm doing the song and dance where I'll say, okay, this is about me. And we talk about terms, and I'll say, okay, always think about it. Because I really, as much as I want them to sign yesterday, it doesn't help anybody if I kind of like try to catch them in that place where they feel like they have to say yes on the spot. Even if they want to, I'll always say, okay, just sleep on it. And I always encourage them to talk to other people. Even if in my gut, I'm screaming at myself for saying the thing, which is go talk to people, but you really want it to feel like it's the perfect fit, and that your whole, you as the writer, when you're saying yes to me, that it's like a full body yes, as opposed to maybe Linda's pretty good, I'm not sure. I want it to be a full bodied yes. So I think I always say, please talk to people, but it is a process where then I wait, and if I at least give them the 2 weeks or whatever they need to talk to other people, and then I'm just waiting on pins and needles. So, but yeah, it's stressful and exciting, and you just always hope that it just works. And then if they pick someone else, you're like, no, but you still hope that You're like, why? But then when you hear who they chose, I'm like, yeah, they're really good too, I guess. So, and you tend to be with the same, the same agents that you all have the same taste. And you're like, okay, fine. But then you do get excited. And you're like, look at that book. And then you go buy the book later and you cry and you laugh. And you're like, I wish it were mine, but that's okay. In the beginning though, I cried a lot, especially as a baby agent. I used to cry when I wouldn't get my way or get the person who said yes. So it's sad, but I'm better now. So it's just experience.
Well, it just shows your passion, for books and for authors. And I think that is special. And, I think we've all cried. We heard.
Yeah. I mean, right. I'm writers, illustrators, the creatives cry, agents definitely cry, at least when they're starting out. Editors cry too. There were some working in publishing, when they would make that pitch at acquisitions meeting, there'd be certain people who would cry all the time. They'd be like, this is the book, we have to buy it, I love it so much. And like the tears would be streaming. You're like, oh my gosh. No, it's one of those industries where people are really, 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 really passionate. And it's definitely a roller coaster ride.
That makes me so happy for some reason. Because that's the thing though, what you said, it's like an engagement. And I think that's the thing, like, it's not just some notch on the belt, like you're going to be working so closely together with your agent. So you want to have that kind of connection with the work, with the person. And I think it's really relatable, like you said, to dating. Like there's a lot of things out in the ether that may or may not connect, and a little bit of magic dust.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Is there something you wish authors knew before querying you?
That there's so many things, but I would say that I give a talk about rejection, and how hard I think it's persistence. But then I read some studies in my own unscientific way about rejection, and that, you can't reason your way out of it. It's completely irrational, but it's physical. Like there are all these neurological things that are tied to it. But I always try and say, please, please, please try. And you're going to take it personally, but try not to. And I think it's only as time passes that it's going to hurt a little less. It will always hurt, but those early stages of rejections are always going to sting the most. And it feels really personal because this is your work. This is really hard to share that part of yourself. So I can understand, man, even when I was in my MFA program, and at that time I was working in Random House, so I was used to like critiquing people's work and all that. But I remember when you have to sit in workshop and for like an hour, and you can't say anything when they're critiquing your work. You're supposed to hold this like funny pencil, which is to signal that you have to stay quiet while you're holding that pencil. And it was just so weird. And everybody was really kind, but it is so weird to hear people talking about your work, and it feels very personal. So I would say try not to take it personally. And I'm going to squeeze another one in, is really sit with comments, right? Definitely. And some comments, even when they're quote unquote good comments, you might be like, no, I don't know. No, none of that. But just think about it. Sometimes they do make sense. But having said that, and that's why it's always such a hard balance, don't listen to everyone, right? Because it's like, even you could talk to 10 different agents and we'll all have our own opinions about a thing. And if you're eager to please, because you're like, oh my God, I love all these agents and I want to change it this way and that way and this way, it's easy to lose your voice and your story. So think about what makes sense. Think about patterns. If everyone's saying the same thing, maybe think about that. But if we're all saying different things, then you just have to go with your instinct on the story and just, what works for you.
That's such important advice. And it's like, definitely that early feedback, you feel it so much. And I remember working with an editor and sending my full to them and getting it back. And I think they were just starting out as well. And the edits they sent made my whole body like just feel completely in disorder. And I realized, luckily, I was just far enough along, because if I got that early on, I would have been like, oh my gosh, I need to change everything. But I realized
Yeah.
that we could not be any less compatible because, again, it's that person to person thing. Sent it to someone else, also had pages and pages of feedback, but it made sense. It made sense to the story. It was trying to like polish it up and make it shine. Whereas the other one was like trying to fit me into their version of what they thought it should, like a different book entirely. And I was just like,
Yeah.
you have to know sometimes when it's, yes, good advice that fits for it, or run.
Right. And there's so many, and I'm sure you've heard so many stories where and you don't have to be a bestseller, right? But even they have their stories where people were always saying, oh my gosh, this is never going to sell. Or, I mean, and look what happens. I mean, sometimes all the best things can happen because that person followed their own instinct and was like, no, this is what I feel to be true to my story, and I'm going to stick to it.
I love it. I love those stories of like continue, like just keep going. No, I believe in it, and then it finally happens. It's just the best.
Yeah.
Now this is always my favorite question because I'm just nosy. What's a day in the life of an agent like for you? Because I know it's different for everybody.
So a lot of email checking, definitely. And say, so I get up immediately, have the bad habit of just checking my emails immediately. I need to get better about that. But trying to answer the most urgent things first, definitely. And you have a list of things to get through, right? So you're lucky if you do make it through maybe halfway, like if you even get that, because inevitably something will always pop up, whether it's, I mean, it's always client related. So I know for me, if I get to the end of the day, if I'm lucky, I have time to read queries that have come in. I mean, and those are kind of like the last because, your clients come first, but it can be anything from, in terms of emails, where you are getting rejected, your clients are getting rejected or getting passes on things for multiple submissions that you have out, and you're like sad, or emboldened to keep going, of course, but always a little bit sad. You might get an offer, which is really exciting, and then you get to make that phone call, and that's just such an exciting part of the process. You're sometimes mid-contract negotiating, so sort of arguing with the contracts people about this silly thing that why are they doing this, but all that fun back and forth. Sometimes you see a cover image for a book that's in the works, and I love that because that's when it starts to feel real. Sometimes you get some exciting news about a client's book that's coming out. Could be something in terms of marketing or publicity or just, I feel like there's always something that's happening. And I'm always checking in with my colleagues because we have a Slack channel and we're always celebrating something or other where we're like, oh, a starred review, or, oh, we have a meeting with this person. Always tons of meetings. That's another thing. Pre-pandemic, it was more in person. I mean, now we're kind of back to doing more in person, but I've kind of stuck with more Zoom meetings, but a lot of, meetings with agents, other fellow agents, and just talking shop, talking to a lot of editors and just getting a sense of their tastes. And even if you've met with them many times before, their taste shift. They might go, okay, last night I was all about, months ago I wanted werewolves and now I'm just over it. I just want vampires, or, oh, I only want contemporary. So that's always shifting around. And then even with film people, and that's a whole other world, which is like, whoa, and kind of nutty. But having those conversations. So I feel like you're just always go until the holidays come, and then it starts to calm and you can actually make your way through the that to-do list.
Yeah. What would you say the hardest part is for you about being an agent?
I think in the beginning it was more staying in the industry. I think because the pay structures are different for agents, but a majority of us get commission only. So that was hard, you had to, when I was running Random House, of course, I couldn't continue to work there, an agent. So I had to leave my salary and benefits. And then I worked at a restaurant for a long time, and just like I was in the basement and just doing side jobs so that I could support myself with agenting. And things have gotten better over time. Even though every year you're kind of like, man, I hope I can do that again. And you always, because you start at square one at the beginning of the year. Like, well, I hope I can make more sales. So maybe that's the hardest part. But no, I would say it's like tied with taking on someone for a project and it doesn't sell. That's another one that's really hard, where you keep trying and you keep trying, and sometimes it just doesn't happen. And you're like, people are nuts. I love this book so much. And you almost give it away just so that it's out in the world. But that might be harder in that sense. Yeah.
That makes total sense, though, because you love the book as well. I mean, you're there to champion this book, and so I could see where it would be, and having to sort of break the news to your author, and so after, if that happens, what's the process? Do you guys talk about writing a new book, and like figuring that out? Are you kind of hands-on with that process?
Yeah, I try to be hands-on. It really depends on the client, because sometimes they want to keep to themselves and like brainstorm. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But more often than not, they do like that brainstorming. And I'll always tell a client, okay, well, if they come with a few ideas, I'll say, okay, this is technically more marketable. But in the end, I'll say, okay, more marketable, but what's the one that you're most excited about? And then I'll be upfront. I'll be like, okay, this is going to be hard, but let's do it. And sometimes wonderful things happen anyway. Yeah. But that conversation usually comes around the time we've already started submitting like project A. And then that's when I tell, okay, we're out, like pretend it's dead in the water. I'll say, like, I'm going to continue and push, but we can't control anything beyond me even nudging, right? It's done. It's like taking the test and you hope that you passed and you did all you could, but it's out. So I'll say, okay, let's work on, even if you're just going to knit a sweater, you need to work on something else. Ideally another project, because if worst case scenario, this doesn't sell, and that's always a possibility, you're ready to go with something else when the time comes. And sometimes depending, clients might write across multiple categories. So if they're like very prolific, they might go, oh, I have this middle grade that, I really would want to work on. I'll go, okay, let's try it. And sometimes we'll cross submit that way. So just keep busy.
Keep busy. That's exactly for your own mental health of not like being stuck in your emails, right? Like just keep busy.
Right.
What would you say is your favorite, like best part about being an agent?
Probably when I get to make that call that it's going to be a book, and I'll say it's going to be a book. It's like a thing. Yeah, that's when you get to make that call, it's really exciting. And then the second part of that would be also then when you actually get to see that book in a store. And it really feels like a piece of it is yours. Yeah.
Well, it is like the way you work on it. I think books have pieces of everyone that you encounter. And even like I find like little phrases of my friends or little mannerisms or stuff, it all slips in the people you work with along the way. I love that.
So true.
Yeah. So like listening to your busy day and, there's so much you have to manage. How do you deal with or avoid burnout?
I'm still trying to figure that out. I need to get a hobby, because I tell this to my clients too, that you need to do something that's not tied to publishing, right? Because I know agent centers who might join a book club. I'm like, no, it cannot be a book thing. Like go read books, do that. But I don't know, I might need to my sister had bought me guitar lessons. So maybe I should, do that. Like I want to. I'm still looking for that hobby that I say I'm going to get every year. So that's the thing I need to do. But I've gotten better about working less on the weekends, because it is kind of hard to draw that line. I mean, if something big has come up, I'll cheat and sort of do that. But for the most part, I work hard enough during the week that I'm like, okay, weekends, I kind of just try to sign off as best as possible and watch a lot of TV and just stay home and play with my cats. Like, I think that's
pretty good.
Like that's some downtime, and eat ice cream and all the things. Yeah.
That's legit.
Yeah.
Pretty good to me too.
And I feel like sometimes we go looking for this. Like I was learning Japanese over the years and I love it. And I even enrolled in Melbourne Uni in one subject to do it. And I started and now I don't learn Japanese because having it as this huge, big thing that I tried to do, like kind of crushed the joy, and it became another kind of job. And I'm realizing now that maybe my hobby is cooking. Like it's an everyday thing, but it brings me so much joy and I can just play with it and kind of like, like if something else comes up, I'm open to like going back to Japanese one day when it doesn't do my head in. But yeah, for now, what my brain can handle is cooking.
Yeah, I love that. I did study, and I've fallen off it as well. I do love languages. I was studying French in 2020, like online lessons. And oh man, my accent's definitely not there, but it was fun, to kind of exercise that part of the brain, and I need to pick it up again. Yeah.
Yeah. When I was doing it in like a small tutorial with like people you'd meet and you'd just chat, it was so much fun. And it definitely was an outlet. But yeah, probably a bad idea to try to do it at uni. I don't like.
Yeah. That's different. Yeah.
Yeah,
with homework and you're like,
anytime there's homework, grades,
no.
Absolutely kills the fun right away.
Yeah. Cooking is nice though. Cooking is good. I mean, I like eating more than cooking, frankly, but I started to get the like home chef, those meal delivery things because for a long time I was just ordering food because I'm just lazy but I'm not rich. So one of those had to give. So now I'm getting that, and I've discovered, I'm like, oh, okay, I do enjoy the process. I'll never be like a foodie that loves to do it, but it is a nice outlet. And I just listen to podcasts while I cook.
Yes.
That's it right there. Well, now you'll have to listen to ours. And
yeah, absolutely. I was checking out the Amparo one too. And I like that you guys put the different snapshots from different interviews. And I always love listening to other agents too, because I learn from them as well. Yeah.
Oh, our agent episodes have been some of our favorite. It's just so interesting to kind of peel back the curtain and like remember that you guys are human, and that it's a human industry that we are in. And Amparo's episode is always going to be one of my favorites. She's just the best. So you can't go wrong.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
Yeah, and she was with me from the first year of agenting.
Really?
Yeah. And it's a risk, it's always a risk. I had experience in other things, but that was my first year of agenting. And I'm like, bless these people for saying yes. And she was one of them. Yeah.
Wow. I didn't realize she's like one of your ride or die original clients. That's really cool. That's epic. And you sold dragon books, which I think is just epic.
Oh yeah, I love those books. Yeah.
That's amazing. I know. Go ahead, Melanie. I know.
I just see our time is ticking away. So are you open for queries? Or if not, are you going to be open in the future?
Yeah, my homework is to answer everyone by the end of this year. That's my thing. Because I always feel bad saying no, and I go, maybe this could work, but I have to just be like, make a decision and stop torturing poor people. So I'm going to try and reopen 2023. That's my thing. Though I've been in a horror state of mind. So romance and horror. So I wouldn't be opposed if they mentioned your podcast, that I would be open to that. But officially I'm going to be accountable and open in 2023. Yeah.
Yes. Well, now everybody, listeners, listen up, because and Amparo has already given us like the approval. You're the best agent in the world. So anybody would be lucky to have you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. As long as they mention the podcast, and I'll be like, okay.
That's right, listeners. You did hear correctly. For a very limited time, the Linda Camacho will be open to queries exclusively for listeners of our podcast. This offer is only valid until the end of this year, 2022. Good luck!
Well, we appreciate it.
Yeah, we do. And it's been so wonderful to meet you in person after all your epic feedback on Manuscript Academy. And I can't say enough how epic that resource is.
Oh my gosh.
Listener. And especially this particular human, very exceptional advice. So thank you for joining us today. And it's been such a delight to chat with you.
Oh, this was so fun. Thank you both. Yes.
Yeah, no, seriously, thank you for just taking the time. And I just know our listeners are going to love this episode and just kind of hearing your heart and your background. So it's really, really great. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, until next time, I'm definitely going to be listening to your other episodes.
Awesome. Good. No pressure. No pressure from the future on.
Our intros are fairly goofy, so
That's fun. That's the fun. You can always tell when people are having a good time. Yeah.
That's it. That's what we're all about, because, publishing's stressful a lot of the times. And so just to bullshit and laugh and, make new friends is just the best. So
yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah. Okay. Take care.
You too.
bye.
Bye.
Bye.